Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your Erik ten Hag press conference reaction for the Crystal Palace game, hot off the press. But also we've got three quite significant transfer story updates for you as well, plus quotes from Wout Weghorst in his very first interview as a Manchester United player. So lots to get into. Make sure you smash a like on the video. Get involved if you're watching live. Get your comments in if you're not. We're going to fly straight into it though. Where do we start on this? Ten Hag press... Oh yeah, first of all, we've got to start off with this. Again, I don't know why, because it is a Premier League game and it is a big Premier League game, but this is again not a press conference that we would have expected. This is an embargoed press conference that's come out at 1:30 today, that was recorded after the game against Man City on Saturday lunchtime. So we are on Monday night and we are Monday afternoon. Tuesday. Where am I? Who am I? What am I doing? Help! Tuesday afternoon, isn't it? It's Tuesday afternoon. So this was actually done after the Man City game. So there's some good updates from Ten Hag in there, but I don't know why we can't do a press conference for a Premier League game on a Tuesday lunchtime. I don't know. But look, what he did have to say is, and we don't really have, and of course the bad thing about this is we still don't know how long Dalot's out for. We don't know what the significance of Martial's injury is. I think we saw Rashford training yesterday, so I think he's fine. But yeah, I can't give you an update on that. But what I can give you an update on is what Ten Hag has said in this press conference. So first of all, he asked about Anthony Martial. Now I think we spoke about this last night a little bit, so you know, a bit ahead of the game. But effectively, the update with Anthony Martial is that he was taken off at half-time for the Manchester City game with not being able to play 100%. And they therefore were concerned because he hadn't trained all week. He trained on the Friday before the Manchester derby, hadn't trained all week, was begging to play. They wanted him to play because he's so important to the team, but at half-time it was very clear that he couldn't give 100% and they didn't want to risk injury any more than that. These are Erik ten Hag's words. And more importantly, for those people who don't understand, because I feel like I'm banging my head against the brick wall here, because it's exactly what I say, and I haven't got WhatsApp messages with Ten Hag. I just think it's logical when you're watching football that, you know, I can see it. I think a lot of you can see it. Some people can't see it. Well, Ten Hag has confirmed it. He wanted to play, Anthony Martial. He's really, really good in the press, which is a big element of our game, and it impacted us massively and negatively in the second half when he had to come off. So I repeat again, he's massively important in the pressing and a big element of our game, and it impacted us negatively in the second half. And it's funny, isn't it? Because I said this in the second half. I think we could all see it. The first 20 minutes after half-time, we struggled. And that's because Martial wasn't there. And people think football's just about, you know, whether you score a one-on-one, whether you create a chance, whether you skip past 2 or 3 players. It's not. It's about organisation. It's about system. It's about, you know, being the lead point of that system. And Martial is so important to that team. You can ignore it or you can acknowledge it. You can like it, but you've got to accept it. Ten Hag keeps saying how important Martial is, and when he's not there, we miss him. But of course, it is now an opportunity for Wout Weghorst, and he comes into the equation. And Ten Hag was asked about that. He said, does Weghorst start against Crystal Palace? He said, I've got to think about that. I've got to think about it, you know. I've got to reassess and have a look at the options. But yeah, Weghorst certainly is an option. Now, Weghorst has done his first interview for Manchester United. That's come out in the last couple of hours. Most of it's just pretty much, I'm happy to be here, can't wait, I'm excited. Yeah, you'd expect all that. But I think the most interesting thing for me was he was asked when he became aware that Manchester United wanted him, which is going to feed into a story I want to give you from The Athletic about Gakpo. And he said, about a week ago, my agent contacted me and said Manchester United are interested. And obviously I was in shock, but what an opportunity. So it's fair to say that United didn't really move for Weghorst seriously until around the second week of January. So probably around sort of like the 8th of January. So there was a story floating around that we'd been interested in him since December. I don't know who put that out there. I don't know why that was put out there. I mean, if anything, it makes it worse, doesn't it? That was the striker we were looking for. So I think the Weghorst story works well in the way that we understand it. we've got no money, and Ten Hag has highlighted him as a cheap option that he thinks can do a good job for us. And I think we're all happy with that. So Weghorst has sort of confirmed that. It was about a week ago that he got contacted by his agent to say Man United were genuinely interesting. And obviously it was a bit of a shock, but it's an opportunity and one that he didn't want to lose out on. So he is now a Manchester United player. Welcome to the club. I'm very excited to see what he can do. Will he start against Crystal Palace? Well, we don't know, because we don't actually know what the situation is with Anthony Martial. We don't actually know whether he'll start Rashford down the middle. But one interesting story, it came out from The Athletic today, that Manchester United, now if I can just read this to you, we're sort of dipping in and out of stuff here. It's quite what's the word? Vibrant? No. I'm thinking of quite a fluid press conference reaction today, because we're interweaving things within things Ten Hag has said. So, in relation to the Weghorst, Manchester, this is from The Athletic. Manchester United debated going for Cody Gakpo, but Joel Glazer ruled it out and said there was no money to be found, and he ruled it out just before Christmas. Erik Ten Hag understood United could only pursue loans, and attentions turned to Weghorst. This is not a surprise, but I think it's always very important to, just confirm the situation that Erik Ten Hag wanted Gakpo, wanted João Felix, and Joel Glazer said, there's no money. There is no money for you. I know you've done really well, and I know you believe you can do really well, but I'm not giving you any money, because I'm just focused on the billions I'm about to make in March. So, no money. No money. So Weghorst has to come in on a loan deal with Ten Hag's blessing. We're not having a pop at Weghorst. We're not having a pop at Ten Hag here. The important part is Manchester United wanted Gakpo, but Joel Glazer ruled there was no money to be found. So Erik Ten Hag could only pursue loans, and attention turned to Weghorst. So that is the story. I pretty much know that, but that's coming out from The Athletic. They also go on to say about Memphis Depay. Memphis Depay was considered for a second spell at Manchester United in January, especially because he's only got 6 months on his deal with Barcelona. But Depay wanted a long-term deal to return, which for United were not prepared to offer given the tightened financial picture. Well, pros and cons, positives and negatives. The traffic light system. I wasn't expecting that. That was also from The Athletic. I was not expecting that. I did think we might go for Memphis, but the reason we're not going for Memphis is because we can't afford to give him a long-term contract. That's terrifying. That is terrifying. I thought we might not want to give him a contract because we don't want him on a long-term deal. We just want him on a short-term one. But they're saying United wanted to give him a long-term deal but couldn't afford it. So it just shows you how little money there must be if you can't even afford to get Memphis on a free on a long-term contract. But I don't want Memphis on a long-term contract, but maybe Ten Hag did. And if he'd got him, I'd have backed that deal. 100%. 100%. Whatever Ten Hag thinks he deserves. But obviously he couldn't get Gakpo because there was no money. He couldn't get Memphis because there was no money. And he couldn't get João Felix because there was no money. But we did have enough money for Weghorst, so at least he got something. So interesting there. Will Weghorst start against Palace? As I said, Ten Hag has said he doesn't want to commit about that. But obviously it's an option going into the game against Palace tomorrow night. Insight here. Let's put this up on the. Actually, I've got some quotes here, so I may as well put them on the screen. Very interesting comment from Ten Hag about whether you should be able to celebrate after a win like Manchester City, which I thought was an insight into the man, because he is a manager that's very obsessed on winning, and it's an insight that we are still learning our way with Erik Ten Hag. And this is what he had to say. He said, on resetting against Palace, every win you've got to celebrate. You work so hard for such momentum, and every win is so great. And if you can't celebrate, you could kill the energy and as well. So we have to celebrate it. But we have to settle down. Afterwards, we have to settle down. We have to settle down after 24 hours, move on, go to the next game, and you get into the right rhythm every single day. And I think that's a really interesting insight into the Manchester United manager, because we are still learning about him. We'll learn more when we go on a bad run, if we go on a bad run. Hopefully we won't. But I think that's really interesting that, you know, he's very much pro that when you win a game that you work hard for, and we are working hard. We're playing every 3 days at the moment. It's not really about the opposition. It's a bigger win when you beat Man City than beating Bournemouth, but we're still playing games every 3 days. When you win, you've got 24 hours to enjoy it, and, you know, that's the reward for the energy and work that you're putting in. But after that 24 hours, you reset, you go again, and you get into that rhythm. It's an insight into management. It's an insight into tactics, and I think it's a very interesting approach from Ten Hag, and one that I certainly agree with, because there are managers out there. I'm not going to name any names, but I think you can guess. Used to manage Man United, one before last. It was about the next game. You know, the celebrations were more about when you achieved something. So you beat Man City, but there will be no celebrating. It's back to work tomorrow. We go again for Crystal Palace. Some managers are like that. They're like, we'll celebrate when we've won something. And I'm not saying what's right and what's wrong, but I can tell you now, Sir Alex Ferguson, as a manager, you know, straddled the modern era and the, you know, pre-Premier League era. And, you know, you speak to some of those players that played under Sir Alex in the early days, and whether he knew it or not, they used to celebrate with a few drinks. They'd still go and win on Saturday 4 or 5-0. So, you know, I think it's like every personality, isn't it? We're going through it with Martial, we're going through it with Sancho, we've been through it with other players, Delo as well. The way that you coach and manage those players is different in all 3 cases. So, Wout to outscore Gakpo and Nunez, transfer kings, says Nav. I'm really excited to see what Weghorst is going to do, actually. Rating that transfer, it's a 6 out of 10. It's a, you know, I don't think it's a bad one. I don't think it's a good one. I think it's a 6 out of 10 on the transfer. And I think some people would mark it as a 4. What would you mark? In fact, what would you mark Weghorst's transfer as? Would you mark it as a low because it's crap? Not because he's crap, but because it's crap backing of the manager and it's cheap? Or would you mark it high because you like Weghorst and you want him to do really well? I think for me it's a 6. I like Weghorst. I want him to do well, but it's cheap, and we should be offering up better than that. So I'm intrigued to see which one. I think my expectations of Weghorst are actually flat. You know, I'm quite in the middle. I'm like, this could go really, really well. It could go okay. It could go bad, and I think that makes it quite exciting because I don't know what to expect. I don't know. He's not a player that Man City want, or Bayern Munich want, or Juventus want. He's not that level of a player, but you know, he's scored goals for the Netherlands. He's scored goals in the Bundesliga. He's a good player. You know, I wouldn't say he's a good. Well, no, he's a good player. Like, you know, he's a good player. Can he play at this level? What can he bring at this level? We've seen with Ighalo. I mean, I think the Ighalo one was worse than Weghorst. I've got to say, giving Ighalo over 200 grand a week to come in from the Chinese league to try and help Manchester United was destined to fail on many levels, because the Chinese, it's a fitness level as well. You know, when you're playing in the Chinese league, you're basically playing in a league that's worse than the MLS, and then you're going to come in the Premier League. That Ighalo deal was riddled with problems because of the fitness and sharpness he would have. But Weghorst has just played in a World Cup, playing in Turkey. His fitness levels will be absolutely fine. So the Ighalo deal is different. I think I understand what people are talking about the Ighalo deal, because it went bad and it was expensive and it was a mistake. But it could have gone well, and it was desperate. I think with this one, it's more thought out. And I think that's the difference between Solskjaer and Ten Hag. In an example, both needed a striker in January. Neither had any money. Solskjaer ends up saying, he went for Rondon, he went for King, he ended up with Ighalo. It was haphazard, it was all over the place, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. Ten Hag, I've got no money. I want Gakpo. You've got no money, have you? Okay, right, go and get me Weghorst. I know a lot about him. He's Dutch. This is what he can do. Go and get me that player. It's just, it was out of nowhere, but it wasn't out of nowhere in Ten Hag's mind. Whereas I think Ighalo was out of nowhere. It was just like Rondon, Ighalo, Josh King. On the final day of that window, I think in the morning it was Josh King. In the afternoon it was Rondon. And then on the evening it was Ighalo. And the day before we've been linked to none of them. So it was just, get me what you can. Whereas I think Ten Hag found out he had no money at Christmas and went, go and get me Weghorst. And it is cheap and it is desperate, but it's still the player that Ten Hag has said within that small parameter. Your Gary Neville was unfair. He did not say it like that. He meant Arsenal depth is an issue. Respect the legends, says Salai. No, I stand by the video. I stand by it. It's not the first time I've heard him say it, so I stand by it. And even if that's true, basically Gary Neville has said he thinks Arsenal will finish third. I can't believe it. I'm stunned. And even if it is about squad depth, why is our squad depth better than Arsenal's when we're 8 points behind him? So I stand by that. You can watch the video on That's Football. I stand by it. And if he wants a conversation about it, which he never ever will, then we can have a chat about it. Ten Hag in the past has always played with a very tall striker, says Claire. Inaccurate, Claire, but not overly inaccurate. Obviously Haller, but he did play a long time at Ajax with a false nine and a small striker. So he's a very adaptable coach. Yeah, definitely. He spoke about Bruno, actually. Good question about Bruno Fernandes. I'll whack it up on the screen for you so you can see what he said. Ten Hag on Bruno on the right. Bruno is important and effective in that role and was important in the pressing as well. I didn't know he was man of the match against City, but he was my man of the match, definitely. You know, what a glowing report that was. And he said that I think he played the role really brilliantly on the right and the left. I think the rest of the team adapted good to the situation, and I think we had really good breaks by finding the free man. But you know, look, I brain dump. Some people think I mouth dump, but I do brain dump. I move on from things very, very quickly. But correct me if I'm wrong, and I will bow down to the knowledge in the chat because I know you lot soak information up like a sponge. Did I not give Bruno man of the match against City? Did he not win man of the match anyway? I can't remember who won man of the match. Ten Hag won it, didn't he? We gave it to Ten Hag, man of the match. But I think Bruno was a high consideration with you anyway. Yeah, I thought Bruno was the. Yeah, I think Bruno was my outfield man of the match. He won us the game. You know, changing 1-0 down, moving Bruno central won us the game. So yeah, I thought Bruno was fantastic. I don't like that he, you know, I don't actually. Let me rephrase this. I don't, you know, visually I don't like it when Maguire comes on and they're there putting the armband on. I just find that odd. I find it really odd. It's like a porn star coming in after the porno and, you know, getting their picture on the front when they weren't in it. And I know that's a horrible thought, but I'm trying to think of a better analogy. But you know, it doesn't sit right with me that a player comes on for 2 minutes and takes the captain's armband for the final whistle. But I think on that game on Saturday, I didn't notice whether that happened. So tell me in the chat, did that happen? But in that type of a game, that's where it really gets on my nerves. And I don't care whether it's Harry Maguire, David De Gea, Marcus Rashford or whoever. But when Bruno Fernandes has a game like that and shows leadership when we're 1-0 down and grabs the game like by the scruff of the neck for 20 minutes, I think he should still have the captain's armband at the end of the game, because when the cameras are looking at him and you're going, what a game Bruno had, you notice the captain's armband. And I think it's a bit harsh on him that, you know, very rarely do we see those cameras at the end of the game with Bruno the captain on. It's on Harry Maguire's arm. And he's played like 93 minutes and he's played, and Harry Maguire's maybe played 2 minutes. And it's like, I think at the end of games, we're forgetting that the captain is Bruno Fernandes because he's not got the captain's armband on anymore. And I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure many of you are. When I think about Bruno and I'm giving him his mark, I forget that he's the captain because it's not normally on his arm at the end of the game. And you mark him on what he's done as a player, but he is also the captain of the team. And in a game like that against Man City, when it's so, you know, that Manchester City game was so good because Ten Hag got it so right. But it's like when Sir Alex Ferguson had Roy Keane. Roy Keane was like a manager on the pitch. I've coached, I'm sure you've coached. If you've not coached, you'll probably know this anyway. When you're a manager, you can get everybody ready all week. You can say really inspiring things. You can remind them about things in the dressing room. When they go on the pitch, if it's not going right, you can't do anything really until half time. You can make subs, you can send notes on, but you can't get the whole team together and sort it out. That's why your captain's so important. And when you have a game like Man City, where Man City had 71% of possession. You've got to be organised. Everyone's got to stick to their position. You've got to be vocal. You've got to be communicative. You've got to be on the same page. That's when that's when people say, oh, captaincy's not that important. It is in a game like that. And when you've worked hard for however many minutes, organised, deprived a very good team of chances, and then you concede a goal, heads will drop because they'll go, oh, okay, we've worked so hard. They've had one chance, they've scored, that's it. Heads didn't drop. They went up again. So I think that 90-minute performance against Manchester City, it shouldn't be forgotten. Bruno played very, very well, but he was also the captain of that team. And we were so well organised up until the goal. And then we had to change mentality and keep the heads up. So I think it's important to remember that because, look, whatever. United can do what they like. Ten Hag can do what they like. Every time Maguire comes on, he takes the captain's armband. But he's not the captain. He might be wearing it at the end of the game, but he's not the captain that got that result. Bruno is. So he deserves some credit for that as well. And I think it's a bit of a shame in a game. I don't really care against Bournemouth or anyone like that. But in a game like Man City, where it was so much about organisation, and then when you go 1-0 down, inspiration, most of that will have come from Bruno. And then for him not to have the armband on his shirt at the end of the game, you sort of forget that he is the captain as well as having a good performance. So he deserves a lot of credit for that because he is the captain. And we're on a run of, when was the last time we lost? When was the last time we drew? So I don't think he's getting the appreciation there because everybody spends so much time going, oh, why is Maguire putting the captain on? Why is Maguire still captain? Well, fair play to Harry. If he is the captain, but on the pitch he's not. The captain is Bruno, and I don't think it gets spoken about enough. It certainly doesn't get spoken about by the press or anyone else like that. United are on a fantastic winning run, and 99% of it, Bruno Fernandes has been the captain, and he gets absolutely zero credit for it at all. It's one to ponder on, isn't it? I know it won't happen, but I would love Chiesa at United, says Chris Smith. And do you think football players ever wear earphones so they can talk to each other, says Matthew? Stephen says they're not going to change captain halfway through the season. I couldn't give a shit about whether they're going to change the captain or not, and I couldn't really give a shit if they want to keep putting it on Harry Maguire's arm. But what I'm telling you is he's not the captain. Bruno is the captain, and more important than that, Bruno isn't getting any credit for it. He's not. No, I've not heard anybody talk about it until we have now. From a captain's point of view, he doesn't get any credit at all, but he is the captain. And I think we need to think about that. When we talk about all these wins and we talk about how mentally strong we were against Man City and how we bounced back from that Grealish goal and how well organised we were in the first half, I think you have to give Bruno Fernandes some credit, which I don't see him getting. Just got home from work in Australia. Any news on Sancho? Sorry if you've already spoken about it. Bozo. Not training with the first team at the moment. Hopeful that he'll be training with the first team by the end of the week after the Palace game. So, yeah, hopeful of that. Should Bruno be captain long term? Well, that's a debate in itself. I think he's done a good job. I'd still like Casemiro to have it, if I'm being honest. I think he is the focal point of the team. I wouldn't mind Marcus Rashford having it in the future. I know that might shock a few people, but I think the older he gets, he could become a good captain. Harry Kane's a captain, isn't he? So why not Marcus Rashford? I mean, if Varane wanted it or Luke Shaw wanted it, I think they'd be good. I probably wouldn't give it to David De Gea. I think he probably deserves it. But goalkeepers as captains, I would agree, probably not the best to do it. Dalot could be a captain of the future. So, we've got Martinez could be a captain of the future. I think this season, you're never going to give it to Martinez, Casemiro, Eriksen. Eriksen might be quite good as well. You're never going to give it to them because it's their first season. But I think next season, hopefully, we'll see a few players go, and then we can, have a look at it. But it may well just stay with Bruno. But I think Casemiro would be a very, very good choice. He's so valuable, isn't he? He's such a leader in that team. Another update on transfers as well. I forgot to give you this. Where was it? So this is a star. This is very, very high. We had Fabrizio on the show yesterday. We asked him about the Dortmund interest in Elanga, and he said yes, it's definitely true. He's put another update out today. Borussia Dortmund are really interested in Anthony Elanga, and the player's priority is to join Dortmund. Well, remember, Anthony Elanga is not English. He is Swedish. So Everton or Dortmund, I think if you're Scott McTominay, or who is Scottish, obviously, but, British, come through the youth setup, or you're Charlie McNeil, or you are, an English-British player, you probably would think, I'll go to Everton, because predominantly British players don't really leave Britain. But maybe Anthony Elanga, Swedish, quite fancies Dortmund development more than Everton. And I tell you what, I like Elanga. I think he needs a loan. And if I had a choice between Everton and Dortmund, I'd swim to Dortmund. Right the way across the sea and up the river, if Dortmund's got a river. 100%, he's right. So you can say what you like about Elanga, and look, he's not been that good, has he, for a while? He needs a loan, but I think he's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Go to Dortmund over Everton, 100%. So it's interesting. That seems to be developing that. And we go back to the morning show. If you didn't watch the morning show, check out the first 5 minutes. Elanga to Dortmund, Makuku to Manchester United. Look, it might be 2 + 2 is 5, but it might be 2 + 2 is Matic. You just don't know. Espen says, I love Ten Hag's comments on Martial's pressing game. Mate, I love it when a manager says what you've been talking about, because I think football is so opinionated, and one comment can be genius to one person, and then to another it's like, look at this idiot. But it's nice when you say something about United and then the manager comes out and says that same thing. And few of us have been saying about how important Martial is off the ball to Man United. That's the pressing, it's the unselfish runs, it's the running into the channels. I see it. Some people don't want to see it. Some people don't like it. Ten Hag has come out for the second time in a week and confirmed how important Martial is to that team in the pressing game, and how they missed him in the first 20 minutes of the second half. So, yeah. Matthew White's loving football right now. I'm the same, Matthew. I mean, I do my stuff on That's Football as well. I mean, United stands what it's all about. I love United, but in general, the Premier League at the moment, I always say it's the best league in the world, and oh God, there's nothing that comes close. It's so good at the moment. We're really lucky, and there's just so many stories. But United obviously is the priority, and be interesting to see what happens with Elanga, because Ten Hag might not want to let him go because of the options, but I think for his own personal development, it's really important that he does go. Casemiro can't speak English properly, so probably not, says Angelo. Not now, he can't, but he will be able to by the end of the season. He's, if you know anything about Casemiro, he will be prioritising that, because one thing about Casemiro is, and he's always been famous for this, he will, whether he wants to learn English to talk to his teammates or because he lives in England is one thing, but he'll definitely want to speak English because he loves to talk to the referees. He loves to be in the referees' ears. He's always been like that, so he will learn it. Hi Mark, are you concerned about the team Ten Hag will put against Palace with the Arsenal game on Sunday, especially since Arsenal don't play midweek, says Luke? Well, it's all on the preview from last night, mate, so I'm not going to delve into it too deep. You can see all the stuff on the preview, but what I will say is you've got to go strong. You've got to go strong against Crystal Palace. The best explanation I can make is that there's 6 points available against Palace and Arsenal. And if you go weak against Palace and lose, and then you go strong against Arsenal and lose because they're a good team, you've got no points. If you go strong against Palace and get 3 points, and then you lose to Arsenal, you've got 3 points instead of 0 points in the other scenario. So I get it, but Arsenal's a really difficult game. Really difficult. They're a fantastic side. They've got a really good team. They're at home. That's a really hard game to win. Even I think some people still think, if we play our best team, we'll beat Arsenal. We might, but it's a tough game. If we play our best team, I think we'll beat Palace. Get the 3 points on the board, and Arsenal will take care of itself. You know what? I don't agree with this. I saw somebody on Twitter, beat Palace, even if we get a couple of players injured or tired or whatever, have a go against Arsenal. Maybe we'll grab a win. If we don't win, we've just screwed City over anyway. So we're not winning the title. So, yeah, I think that you've got to go to the next game. He might make rotations. He might bring Maguire in. He might bring McTominay in. He might rest Casemiro. But personally, I think Palace are dangerous, and I would go strong in a game like that. Weghorst about to drop some Harry Potter magic on Palace, and Goldbridge is going to marvel at him eventually. This is delicate official. I like Weghorst. It's funny. I was over with Ben Foster yesterday, and he was going on about the clip. Weghorst, and I was like, that's 4 years old, and he couldn't believe it. I said, people are acting like that clip of me on FIFA was a reaction to Man United buying Weghorst. It's 4 years old. I hope he does really well. And yeah, I think one thing we're all going to see from Weghorst that probably shouldn't be a surprise now, especially if you've not watched the vid. If you remember to watch the latest exclusive video about Weghorst, comparing him to Haaland and Tony and Martial. He is a pressing monster, and that will impress people. People love people who run around a lot, who, especially for strikers. Rooney used to get roared for sprinting back and tackling their fullback as much as he would for scoring a goal. So, people love that, and you will see that. And Sika says Weghorst must play. I'm sure he'll play some role. I don't know whether he'll start. We beat Arsenal without Casemiro. Now with him and with all the progression, I think we can do it. But we are on the Emirates. You never know. Tough game, Mad Bro. It's a tough game. And I think Faded makes a good point. Weghorst will be a welcome addition to the team, because his principles will fit in with quite a few of the players in that team, and especially in the spine. David De Gea, very focused, very passionate leader. Varane, the same. Martinez, when he plays, the same. Casemiro, the same. Bruno, the same. And then Weghorst, the same. You've got a spine of, energy and passion and leadership, and I think that makes, the more people you bring in like that, the better. George, welcome to the members club. Thank you very much. It's not as tough as City away, says Mashup. We didn't play City away at the weekend. We played City at home, mate. Mark, do you think Ten Hag is going to keep Maguire as a backup defender or sell him, or maybe a loan to somewhere, says Filippo? I think with Maguire, McTominay, Lindelof, maybe a couple of others, if they're not knocking on the door in the summer and saying I want to leave, I'd be questioning their mentality. Obviously a lot can change between now and May, but let's imagine everything continues the same. McTominay's hardly playing, Maguire's hardly playing, Lindelof's hardly playing. They're all internationals, and they all need to play first team football. So look, maybe they will all be here next year, but I think they've got to take a look at it themselves and go, look, everyone's been given a chance. This is Ten Hag's first season. Nobody can say, and I think this is a great thing to remember, nobody's not been given a chance. The only player that hadn't really been given a chance and has still ended up getting a chance is Wan-Bissaka. Everybody has been given a chance under Ten Hag. So, and it's his first season. So I don't think in the summer you could sit there and go, oh no, it's been a bad first season, but I'll be back in season 2. You won't. You won't be back in season 2. You're like Ned Stark in season 1. You're gone. You're not back in season 2. You're finished. Game of Thrones. But yeah, I think if you don't force your way into Ten Hag's plans this season, you're probably going to have to knock on the door and say, can I go in the summer? Because he's given everybody a chance. And if you've not... Where we are now, if you're sat on the bench, you've got to be thinking, the only way I'm getting into this team is injury crisis, because he clearly doesn't fancy me. And look, Martinez has got to work his way back in at the moment. I'm sure he will do, but who knows? Hi, Mark. Would you be interested in mountain biking with Goldbridge? Jonathan Fundamental MTB coaching Wales. There you go. Mountain biking with Goldbridge. Sounds interesting to me. Yeah. Where are we going to go up a mountain? There's not many mountains where I live. I'm not going to tell you what happened to Ned Stark, Stephen. I don't do spoilers, but if you've not watched Game of Thrones by now. Can I just remind you, 4 o'clock today on this channel, we've got a new show. It's the debate show. It's live from the studio. Make sure you tune in for it. I'm really excited to watch it, and I hope you are as well at 4 o'clock. And I, of course, will be back at 8 o'clock. So, interesting updates. Little bit frustrated that it wasn't a real press conference and it was an interview from Saturday lunchtime. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. And, talking about the Palace game after the Man City game on Saturday lunchtime when we're playing Wednesday night. So we don't really get any updates on the injury status of players. But look, we are where we are. And we're in a very good place at the moment. And let's hope we can keep that momentum going. Don't miss the show at 4 o'clock. You're going to really enjoy it. I'm back at 8 o'clock as well. Take care, everyone. And get involved in the debate show as well. It's all about interaction, so get involved in that. I'll speak to you in a bit. Thanks for watching.